So the Palais des Congrès is very, very proud to be part of this event with EAI. It's a first for us. We introduced a program where we invited Montrealers that had specific interests in producing a new type of event that would build the awareness of Montreal and its specific sectors. So EAI is co-produced with the Palais des Congrès, and we're very, very proud to host this with them today. And we're very proud to have three, and I'll say it, I shouldn't be saying it, but it's girl power on stage right now. I know, eh? We should all applaud. I mean, it's so nice to see women, especially in this sector. So thank you all for being here. I would really like to take this opportunity to give a chance for all our panelists to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their sector and what AI has brought to their sector. Maybe Suzanne, you'd like to start?
Nice to see you, everybody. I'm a strategy consultant from London. So I work across all different kinds of sectors, helping companies with their organizational brand, and helping them hone and sharpen their product, their innovation, their culture, their approach to communications. The area of arts and museums is a real area of specialism for me. And the reason I'm here today is because I co-curated a very large exhibition about artificial intelligence, which launched at the Barbican Centre in London in 2019. It was 2 or 3 years in the making. It's now on tour, heading around the world. It's in China, in Guangzhou, so it's making its journey. It was an ambitious undertaking. It looked at the big questions that we're all posing ourselves around AI. What is human? What is intelligence? What is consciousness? And also, what is natural and what is artificial? All of these questions aren't really fully answered, and that's the ambiguity makes it very rich ground. The exhibition was very multidimensional in its perspective, looking at the history, the culture, the social angles of AI. And I think overall it was distinctive in its outlook because of my co-curator, Maholo Uchida, who lives in Tokyo, is based in Japan, and brought a whole wealth of non-Western ideas and thinking to the creation of the exhibition. So we were able to make comparisons between attitudes to AI in the West and in Eastern societies, particularly Japan. And as we know and sense in the West, there is more fear, anxiety, trepidation about AI. And then in Japan, there's much more ease. And there's interesting theses about this. Some people feel it's related to the Shinto underpinnings of the culture. So the Shinto belief system, the Shinto religion, which is animist and has a core idea, which is a core philosophy of the kami, so the spirit gods, which live in everything, living and non-living things. So the idea of the inanimate coming to life in Japan, for Maholo, and as others describe it, is more natural, as we might call it. So we were able to explore those ideas, and it led to another big idea in the exhibition, which is that perhaps humans are not the center of the world, and that we are one type of intelligence amongst many others, a much greater connected ecosystem. That's planetary intelligence, intelligence of other species, artificial intelligence. And it might actually be healthy for us to see ourselves that way as we face the climate crisis and the climate emergency. So it was an exhibition that triggered a lot of conversation and drew a lot of attention. It was a platform for many wonderful artists, some of whom are working in AI, with AI, some of whom are creating work about AI, more political work, some of whom are working with artificial life, so this isn't just the processes of the brain, but they're actually drawing on the process of nature itself. So that means they might be working with plant life or food or skin or cells. That area of AI and art is now flourishing in many, many different respects. And we'll be talking about it over the next couple of days. I think AI in the museum world is going to grow and grow, not just in terms of it being a platform for this kind of wonderful work, but I think we'll see AI in the visitor experience, of course, AI as curators. We'll see AI opening up new pathways of knowledge. And I think just as a final thought from me, the thing that most excites me about AI is that it opens up and challenges the idea of the human. And it brings about this diversity in ways of thinking and being and even a diversity in the species, which we've just heard about, which for me is a good thing. And us opening up our world and thinking about the possibilities of that opens up a really exciting future.
Wow, thank you. And especially thinking that maybe, yes, us humans are not at the center of the universe is quite a challenging question. Chandralika, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how AI has challenged your sector or opened up your sector?
Definitely. Hello, everyone. Extreme apologies for not being there physically. Do you guys hear me twice by any chance?
No, I hear you. We hear you fine here.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Sorry, guys. So I see two of myself. It's like me and my avatar. So I thought it was some play on me. So forget, yeah. So I'm the co-founder of an AI company called Bigthinx. So we are one of the pioneers in the fashion tech space. So when we started long back in 2016, obviously fashion tech was not something that was widely spoken about because fashion was all about touch and feel. It still is. Thanks to the pandemic and a lot of changes that's happening in the world, that we are accepting or embracing AI in different ways. As I always say, it need not be, you need not sit and code to know AI. There's so many things we can do with it. There's a short video around, I think at some point we'll play that through. So what we do is we're all around the human body avatar, human body data. So my AI replicates 2 photos from any mobile phone. I get all your human body, all body measurements. If you love buying, from Net-a-Porter or Zalando, you go there, take 2 photos. I can actually tell you which brand, which size you need to buy. And further, if you take a selfie, your avatar gets generated. And I need not even highlight what are the applications of the avatar is in today's new world. And the new term that everybody is talking about is the metaverse. Our application was purely to reduce apparel waste in the fashion industry because we are overproducing and we don't know how much to produce. And we are just going on buying online, returning online. Well, we started our journey like that. But today, we are in different sectors. We are helping not only big export houses, but some of the biggest corporates, omnichannel fashion retailers, to help them go digital, to help them understand how to accelerate the process of going digital, make it more scalable for them. So our AI also replicates from any 2D image. It creates a 3D garment, so which is much more easier than going through some of the softwares that is very expensive and time consuming. So yes, so that's a little bit about us, and our main focus is always being the North America and Europe, and now we are looking at other sectors and entering gaming, which is big for us right now. And every day, to be honest, we get this request from some metaverse in the world asking us how can they deploy our avatars in their metaverse. So very exciting times for all of us ahead.
So, Chandralika, have you started working with Metaverse? Like, are you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it is. It's called the metaverse now. We have been doing, everything in a digital space from many years now. So yes.
Okay.
So it's just term is different now.
Thank you. Carrie, we haven't met each other officially, so it's very, very nice to meet you. Unfortunately, not in person, almost in person. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Carrie?
Sure, and you guys can hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, I feel like I've already learned so much just being in this talk for about 5 minutes about commies and the spirits and how to, get the right AI fit clothes. So that's amazing so far. So my background was interesting. When I was approached to be on this panel, I thought, wow, I know nothing about entertainment, and what do I know about AI? This is odd. But I realized in thinking about it and having conversations with the folks doing this conference, it was so exciting just in terms of how expansive and broad and creative this group was in getting a whole range of ideas. So my background is all in urbanism and technology. It's what I've been focusing on for about 15, 16 years. I've always been fascinated with how digital technology is affecting physical space in cities. And so AI is certainly within that bucket with, big data and computing power. And so early on in my career, I focused a lot on just again the impact of digital technologies on physical space. So I did a bunch of research and work on how, for example, the New York Stock Exchange was it becoming irrelevant because of electronic trading? Do you need that physical space? And the work I did and kind of where we're at now is very much, no, you still need those spaces. You still need those moments of theater and drama and ringing the bell on the stock exchange floor. And that's a huge monumental thing. And we're continuously seeing and ongoing with the metaverse, for example, this really interesting interplay between physical spaces and digital worlds. And so I focused on this space for some time, as I mentioned, and I do think creativity is very much at the root of this. And our cities, are huge creative bastions. It's what brought me into this space. I really, am fascinated by how you make spaces that are compelling and interesting and exciting. And what's kind of uncanny about this is I've always thought of Montreal as being one of these amazing spaces. The Spectacle Quarter, Moment Factory at the Cathedral, the waterfront. I think, Bota Bota these are just incredible, creative, wonderful spaces that, are very evocative. And it's the reason people go to cities and love being around each other. Something we've especially noticed with COVID and their absence. And so I'll just share a couple other things I worked on just to round this out a bit. But and centering it a bit in the arts, which I know is the focus of this talk. But, one of the projects I worked on early on in my career was with a company called Shared Studios out of New York. And this was well before video conferencing was a thing. But the idea was, how do you knit different cities and different places together using digital technologies? And, doing something as easy as what we're doing now, just talking over Zoom, this was in 2015, so it wasn't as easy to do. And so we set up these shipping containers around the world, and we spray painted them gold. So they were, not real gold, but so they were really shiny and interesting. And like, what is this thing that I'm seeing? And we put them in public squares around the world. So in Hayes Valley in San Francisco, in a square in Washington, D.C., in Mexico City. And people approached the shipping container, walked inside, and had a full body video conference with somebody around the world. And again, this was before Zoom was so easy. We had so many technical difficulties, but we set it up such that you truly felt like you were in the same space. The rooms were identical. And we did a little sleight of hand where the camera really was at your eye. And so you felt like you were talking eye to eye. And so it was this beautiful thing of using technology to bring people together, eliminate space time, and transform our physical spaces. And since then, I've worked at, I was at Sidewalk Labs, which was Google's urban tech arm. We had a big project in Toronto we worked on. I lived there for several years. And while I was there, a big focus of mine was on the ground floor spaces, so creative, cultural, community, retail spaces that make places come alive. And how do you incorporate technology in a way that makes them better and more exciting and interesting, whether it's, supporting a small business to, what kind of entertainment or projection mapping we put on something. And so now I'm at, going back to a little bit of the metaverse discussion, I'm at a company called Jamestown LP. We're a real estate investor and manager, properties across the US as well as Europe and Latin America. And one of the things we were known for is actually we own One Times Square in New York City where the ball drops. And during COVID, we actually, and this was before my time, I wasn't at the company yet, but we strongly believe that great places are, both in person and online. And so we put the ball drop, that experience, that building in Decentraland, so on the metaverse. And we had, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands, I believe, dial in and watch that ball drop experience from their own computer and from their home. And so I love that. And I think it kind of ties back to the whole, career trajectory here and interests around this duality of space and it being both virtual and online. So I'd say yes, technology is massively influenced the world of urbanism, and it will continue to.
So that's when I was talking to Suzanne the first time a few days ago, we were talking about how art influences AI and how it's part of the creative process. And you mentioned that, Carrie, that it's creativity is at the heart of all of this. I'd like to, because I wouldn't associate art, creativity, and AI. I'd like to better understand how do you integrate art into that process. Suzanne, maybe you'd like to talk about first?
Sure. Well, it's a huge topic. Is AI creative? I mean, if I was to stand in a corner, I would say yes. I think it does have great creative potential, and that was even before it was used by artists. And we know if we look at the DeepMind AlphaGo match a few years ago in Seoul with Lee Sedol, Move 37 was this stunning moment in the match where AlphaGo made the winning move that was so out of the ordinary, so novel that people laughed at it. To me, AI, for all of its emergent processes, is capable of breakthroughs and novelty, originality, things we don't understand. It doesn't follow our logic. So it has all the creative threads. And I think, the art of AI is so important for broadening the field of AI, because AI in the commercial world can be about productivity and efficiency, and we need a bigger sort of range of questions being asked. And artists are drawing forth its creative potential. They're using it to create wildly new forms of image making or new forms of perception. They're opening up new ideas of space and time. Some of them are creating new entities to collaborate with, new beings, new virtual beings, which we've also heard about this morning. And different artists have different ideas, or they position themselves differently, the degree to which they're creating the art or the AI is creating the art. But certainly, to me, AI is more than a tool. It's a realm that we enter and explore. And it opens up the boundaries so much. It gives us a kind of a new domain of experience, and what richer ground for artists to work with than that.
I'm curious to hear Chandralika about that, because it's you would assume that it's used as a tool in your sector, in your business, but I do feel that no, you've really changed how you look at AI to be a lot more creative, and utilize the arts into it. So
Definitely. I'm so happy to be here with both of you because, Carrie, I'm an architect by education. So I'm ideally supposed to be building physical buildings, but I can't agree, and I'm an artist. So, Suzanne, hear you. So right now I'm just creating in the digital space. That's the only difference. Being an architect just helps me understand the scale very well. So that's the advantage of being an architect, I understand. Now, coming to the question, our automatic AI replicates clothing from any 2D image. So the AI is trained to understand the structure, the patterns of different designs, and we women would agree how complicated our garments are. It changes every season, every week. I don't know, our moods are pretty difficult. So training that AI is definitely very hard to, but at the same time, although they're trained to understand the structure and the patterns, they're not really creative. Like, I would not say that they're creating the garment from scratch, but the art of understanding the pattern, the structure, the cut of a garment, for example, in itself for me is very creative. It is not like some codes running in the background. There's a lot more to it. And if I just talk about the avatars, for example, so I let you create your personalized avatars by just taking a photo. Then I give the creative right to the end user to make it stylized if you want to add accessories, to have the weirdest hairstyle that you never dared to have. So AI does give us the right to be as creative as we want. I think it depends on how we leverage it. But definitely, although there is a lot of technicalities behind, I definitely believe AI has been utilized. And I would say, in fashion world especially, if you're not creative, I don't think you can create any product that the consumers are going to love.
That's it's a good point, and you're absolutely right. And Carrie, I'd like to hear a little bit more about, because I love the idea of the ball dropping, that experiencing the ball dropping, because I'm a big fan of going to New York every year and looking at the ball drop. So how did that come about? How do you see that as a creative process, and how did you think about it?
Well, I love that you like seeing the ball drop in New York.
Oh,
I
I
feel like
love
most New
it.
Yorkers don't and avoid it with their lives. So I can't speak to it fully because, again, I wasn't at the company
Yeah.
when they did this. But I think, when you think about it and how you start to move the physical world into the digital, it's not going to be a one for one. It's not going to be a Google Maps satellite view that's perfect. There are modifications and differences, and I think that's where you get really creative. And artists have always played with technology and different mediums, conceptual art or, you know, you name it from the beginning. And I think that's what art does that's so amazing. And so I think that's where you get the creativity and the colors and the look and feel. And I think with all of these metaverse or just anything, Instagram, TikTok, you can specialize and modify to make something your own and do so in a way that's, completely out of the bounds of what you can do in reality, which is really interesting. And, do that in a way that's critical or creates a dialogue and does something different. Yeah, and I go back again to this work I did on the stock exchange, which I don't often think about or talk about. It was a long time ago, but um, this company, an architecture firm called Asymptote, which I don't know if it's still around. This was probably like 2006, but they actually created a virtual mock-up of the stock exchange and um, visualized the information flows. And it was ostensibly because they were having the exchange itself, they were having IT challenges. And so the asymptote model made it easier for them to visually identify them. And it was basically a digital twin. I don't know how effective it was from an IT perspective, but it was so creative in how you visualize the flows of information, the different colors, the sizes, the widths, things like that, and just how someone thinks about portraying physical space in a different medium. So um, I don't know if I answered that at all, but I do think there's tremendous creativity.
So when I think about AI, I really think about how elitist it is and how it's reserved to experts in the domain and how it's kind of not accessible. How do we go about democratizing AI? How do we go about making it accessible to everyone, and that it doesn't feel like it's so elitist and it's so unattainable? Who would like to start? Chandralika, why don't we start with you?
Thank you. This is in fact true. And again, I'd lovely to see women around here because usually whenever I walk in, it's only men. Sorry for that. In the AI world, I mean, in the world that I work in. So
That's why I applauded the fact that we're all women here. So it's good to see a lot more
yes,
women in that field.
yes, that's really true because I often walk into any room and I don't see any women. And every day when I recruit, I am very biased. The moment I see a women candidate, I actually personally call the person. I have to accept I'm very biased. So I'm trying my best to get more women in there. Now, coming to your question, today, if I just think of everything has a layer of AI, just look around. Everything comes with an AI layer. You have your mobile phone next to you. Today, whoever opens your Instagram, you're going to see all the AI talks. It's going to follow you everywhere. Everything is already has AI in it. We don't need to understand code to understand AI. AI is nothing about data. We all are data points. And without us, I don't think any AI company or any AI cannot exist. So I think it's a misconception. We all are involved in AI. Now, if we understand and embrace it, be more conscious about what we are doing, when we are clicking what we are doing, I think this can be utilized in much better ways in curing cancer. Or, for example, just today, my co-founder is a type 1 diabetic. He's diabetic from birth. He was just telling me that, till date, there is no cure for type 1 diabetes. And he was very sad. And this is exactly where, if we use AI in the right way, I'm sure even tomorrow, there'll be a cure for type 1 diabetes. And that's how we democratize AI.
So, Carrie, how do you go about democratizing AI, especially in your field? Because it's, I don't know, it seems pretty far-fetched to think of the industry you're currently in and AI. How do you make sure that you're...
Yeah. I mean, I think in general, I agree. I do think it has an elite point of view. Like when I was preparing for this conference, it was a lot of, university centers and think tanks that focus on artificial intelligence and bias and things like that. I would say that on the very, when I'm talking about metaverse and physical and digital spaces, like that is this big, thing existential to real estate. But we also use AI as a tool in countless other things that we do, whether it's, I didn't get into this because it's a bit off topic, but like, energy management systems for our buildings to better, manage our HVAC systems. That's all done through AI. That's understanding the weather that's going on today. That's understanding how many people are going into the building and channeling it appropriately. So I think Chandralika is right. Like, it's already all around us in almost everything. Like, we have a program we use and an app at some of our residential properties that it's a peer-to-peer app. It's called Kobu. And it's a third party. It's not ours. We just use it. But it enables people in apartments to, be part of a dog walking group or a mom's program or, a group to shoot basketball, hoops in the evening. And so it's a really peer-to-peer thing. And what often happens with these groups is that they have message boards and they just devolve. There's like sarcasm, there's bullying, it just gets rude. And so this platform actually uses AI to, police that in a way that's, hey, you said something that violates our terms, like, and make sure that it stays positive and doesn't devolve. And it's been incredibly effective. So I do think it's all around us and it's used constantly. And so maybe there's more of a different wording that's a little more accessible and doesn't make people think of, Hollywood movies and just kind of making it more familiar.
So it's interesting because you both said it's all around us, yet there's huge data trust issues right now. So Suzanne, how do we counteract that? How do we go about that?
Well, I think that involves real self-awareness on our part. I mean, the amazing thing about AI is it acts as a mirror to us as a society, and it shows our own inbuilt biases. So yeah, we can improve the algorithm, but the issue is deeper set. So this is what I appreciate from AI. People blame it for bias, but it's showing us what problems we're creating for ourselves. So we need to be dealing with the underlying issues. Yes, improving the algorithm, and there are tools which will help surface bias in AI, and there are fairness tools, and these are all extremely helpful. But AI calls us to account as well. And, all of this discussion is about how do we broaden the funnel, the throughput of people coming into the industry? How do we get more different types of people joining in and joining the conversation? and a wider representation of people at the top. I mean, this isn't just an AI problem. This is across society as a whole. But there are some countries, I think, who are particularly conscious in terms of bringing AI into their education program, into schools in a very progressive way, like Finland. That's taught in AI is taught in primary schools. So it becomes a language and a topic that children feel belongs to them. And other countries need to be doing the same. It will stay this vacuum at the top if we as a society treat it as that. So, yeah, it requires reflection, and that's great. It's one of the great things about AI. But I don't think it's as straightforward as blaming the AI. I mean, we are definitely part of the problem as a society. We've got underlying issues to address continually.
So you talk about AI, and AI is very global. Yet there's a cultural attitude that is true to each country. How do you address that? I mean, I'll ask a question to Chandralika first, because I imagine in your own field, it must be quite a challenge to make sure that you're culturally respectful of the different countries you work with. Oh, you're back. You're good. Did you hear me, Chandralika? Oh.
Yeah, I'm back. Okay. Yes. I understood the culture. Okay, it's a very sensitive, especially if I just have to think about what Bigthinx does, because we deal with human body data. Different cultures have different way of, some of them might be very conservative about it. So we build very intuitive products that can be easily tweaked. And the way we look at AI is just an enabler of creating those intuitive products. And there's a lot more different types of technology that goes behind it. But definitely, AI gives me the power or the freedom of tweaking it according to different cultures. For example, without naming any particular geography, a certain part in Asia, I met the CMO, biggest, e-commerce players, and he told me that, the women in that country wanted the bodies to be always a perfect secret model, but they wanted to only change the face and the skin tone.
Oh.
Okay. Then I went to a different country, and then
the beauty
and
of
the CMO
live.
told me they
Yeah, I'm
and they
sorry.
didn't want the skin tone to change. They wanted the skin tone. Sorry.
I think you're good now. You were breaking up a little bit, Chandralika. That's the beauty of hybrid events. That's our biggest challenge
So
here now
sorry.
at the Palais. No, it's not your fault. It's technology, okay? Go ahead. Please go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Am I back? Yes.
Yes.
So one country had the issue of all the women always wanted to see the perfect body. The other country wanted to see the perfect skin tone, which according to them was very fair or white. So these are the different cultural challenges that we face, and sometimes we often tweak our products according to their requirements, and we obviously have to be very sensitive about them.
It must be quite a challenge in your field. Oh, Carrie, now that you're back, now that we see you back on screen, what do you think about how are we respectful to our culture with a global approach to AI?
I thought that was an interesting question, and sorry, this is again the beauty of working from home is there's always so much going on. Yeah, and I was going back to when I was thought about this one. I think like the global local, it's the challenge with everything. And the analogy is also with real estate. Like you can have a big multinational entity. Sorry, that's my dog.
How big is your dog, Carrie?
Not big.
Ooh, he has a big bark, though.
I'm sorry. Sorry, everyone.
No, this is the part that I love the most, actually, about these events, is you bring a little bit of personality into it.
I know, really. But I would say that, yeah, this is the analogy with real estate too. Like you could have a multinational company, but you need people on the ground who know the local area, who can, know the different sides of the tracks and the buildings and the dynamics. And so I think it's the same, and it's about just having like excellent, in many cases, product managers who can ensure that what the users want and need at the end of the day. Again, it's what Chandralika said about um, people and their different desires with avatars. It's very much knowing the on the ground, um, situation and what users want. So that's kind of how I would characterize that. I hope that answered the question.
I think that to your point, having boots on the ground, being understanding the culture is. I know that you come from the advertising world, Suzanne. So you remember when you were in that field, and just back then you had to be very respectful and understand each of the cultures. How do you go about it now with AI in your field?
Well, it's actually a big part of my research now. How do we create intercultural frameworks for AI? Because if we're just looking at it through our own eyes, I think we're doing ourselves and the subject a disservice. So I think there's a huge amount to learn from other cultures in how to work with AI. And what I learned from creating the exhibition with my colleague Maholo was that it was really interesting to hear about this Japanese mindset, which is non-competitive with AI. There's a certain segment of our society who I think are very threatened by the rising power of AI because it will challenge the way things have been. But what we see in Japan, and certainly what I learned from having spent time there and with Maholo, was that there's a much more synchronous relationship. And I think that's an example of something we should be learning from. And if we approach the future with this adversarial outlook, I think we could end up making problems worse. So I'm very interested in how we don't just see this topic through our own culturally specific eyes, and how we create AI that works for different cultures, that responds to the needs of people beyond the elite, of course, but also that we learn and we move on and evolve our own approach, because it's not all ideal here. So
you're so right, and it's true in AI, but it's so true in every industry. We have to stop approaching the future with such an aggressive or advertorial approach to it. You're absolutely right. Carrie, I know there's a topic that you wanted to discuss a little bit. You wanna throw something out there for us to discuss? I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh my gosh, what was it?
See, that's my problem. I couldn't remember either, so I'm sure Carrie will remember because she's the one that put that.
I can go into.
It's fine. Is there I'm going to take advantage maybe of the time that you're looking for that topic. Is there a question in the room that you'd like to ask? I'm sure somebody's going to get up and ask a good question. No topics you want to?
question.
Oh.
Maybe complete something that has been spoke about how to democratize AI and stuff. But maybe because I don't know, but I believe that maybe we should start teach coding, like not super complicated stuff, but like the bellissima coding. Let's say in private school, the same way as we teach in let's say arithmetic or education physics. Oh, thank you. My God, I feel important.
But you are important.
Thank
You're
you.
here. Thank you for being here.
So basically to expose the beauty of code and to kind of enlever.
To remove? Yes.
To remove the fear of what coding is to some people, because I believe that there would be way more young person that would be interested in this field if they would not have that kind of thinking that maybe coding is complicated or something like that.
So what's your name?
Dragan.
Dragan.
Yes.
Nice to meet you. Thank
Same
you
here.
for your question. So the question was around what we were talking earlier about this industry being so elitist and maybe giving accessibility to coding to younger children would kind of democratize it in the long run. What do you feel about that?
I think that's great. It's got to be the way forward. It's brilliant. Yeah, of course.
Carrie? Oh, Chandralika,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry.
I completely
So,
agree on that,
so
but
I
yeah.
completely agree with that because I teach in a lot of colleges, you know, a lot of maybe fashion management colleges, you know, and what I fear is, or what I tell them is, don't be scared. There is a certain unfortunate, we are very obsessed with, you know, A-list colleges. Sometimes maybe some students don't get the chance to get inside them. They feel, oh, I lost the chance, you know, I lost the train, I now can't do AI. It's so psychological. Giving a chance early on, 100%. You definitely need to know maths, but need not be an Einstein, right? Not everybody needs to be a genius. There's enough roles inside AI. Without all of us, we cannot, each of us here contribute to AI. So, you know, code is, as I always said, is a small part of it. You can contribute to AI, and it's just psychological. We need to get away of them. If we can somehow dissociate with the colleges and teach them from the childhood, yes, everyone can do it.
I
So-
have another question
Yes.
for
I just have a
Chandralika.
comment.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a comment on that one as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead, Carrie, please. Go ahead.
I also think it's not necessary. Like, I completely agree that, you know, learning code and having that in schools, especially high schools, you know, is critical. But I also don't know if you necessarily need to have or build that skill set. There are plenty of areas that touch this space where you just need to be, you know, passionate and competent to really shape the space. There are plenty of people who, you know, are doing great thinking on arts and AI and don't have that deep computer science background. And I think that's the case in a lot of industries that are highly technical. So I think it's knowing the people to ask questions. But I don't think it's, you know, you're barred from a profession because you don't have the exact technical skill. So that's my comment on that.
Thank you.
I also think there's a point about not just learning code, but, you know, with kids talking about their relationship to AI and AI in the world and what they're signing up to, knowingly or unknowingly, and the implications of social media and what they want to be part of and what they don't want to be part of. I think, you know, a lot of us, we're carried along by a wave of enthusiasm. I am too. And it means that obviously you're giving a lot of data away, and becoming aware of your place in relationship to these technologies, I think is taking some power back. So this is a part of a broader conversation about the kind of social implications of AI and making sure that that's discussed as well.
So while I don't want to get into that topic, but what I'm hearing is it has to come from you, but maybe rethinking our education system would actually be a good thing to introduce those new ways of thinking and creating. And so I feel like a lot of this conversation has been about how do we give the tools to our young ones to better understand how they're getting involved with it and what they could do in the future to be a part of it. You had a question?
My question was for Chandralika, because I know she has a beautiful video, and I would like to have seen it. But
I thought it was the video at the beginning. Did you have a video, Chandralika?
yeah, but I think we can have it now, and maybe
Yes.
we'll see what she does, because it's very amazing.
Sorry. Yes.
Well, and it's my apologies because I thought those were the images that you were showing earlier. It's a good way to end this because I think it's time to end this. So maybe I'm going to thank all of the panelists. Thank you so much, Carrie, Chandralika, Suzanne, for being here. I think actually this hybrid model actually worked pretty well, so I'm happy. And maybe we can close it off with your video, Chandralika.
Oh, thank you so much. Sending my love to everyone.
Oh, namaste. Good way to close this off. Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much.
Si.
Merci beaucoup. Emmanuelle Legault du Palais des Congrès, Chandralika, Hazarika. What a beautiful video. That was dreamy. And Suzanne Livingston, Carrie Denning Jackson, thank you so much.